Today we're looking at George Rogers Clark. Hello, welcome to the Daily Bellringer. Please don't forget to subscribe and take a look at the questions down in the description. Also, don't forget to check out dailybellringer.com where you'll find more resources that go with many of the Bellringer videos. George Rogers Clark, perhaps not as well known as many other Revolutionary War leaders such as George Washington, Ethan Allen, or Henry Knox, was a commander who helped lead American troops to victory in the far western fronts of the American Revolution. Clark was born the second child of John and Ann Rogers on November 19, 1752, near Charlottesville, Virginia. George was one of 10 children, and actually his youngest brother, William Clark, would go on to help lead the famous Lewis and Clark expedition to explore the Louisiana Territory. Growing up, George had little formal education, and actually much of his education came from his grandfather, who taught him how to be a surveyor, who is someone who measures and lays out boundaries of land. At the age of 19 in 1771, George left home, venturing into western Virginia and eventually into what would become Kentucky on surveying trips. Shortly thereafter, Clark joined the Virginia militia and was involved in several conflicts with Native Americans as English settlers pushed west into Kentucky. In 1776, just as the American Revolution was beginning, Clark traveled to Williamsburg, Virginia to meet with the governor of Virginia at that time, Patrick Henry, and the Virginia General Assembly. Virginia agreed to extend its boundaries to include Kentucky County, which is basically the entire state of Kentucky today. By 1777, when the Revolution was truly underway, the British began to arm Native Americans and encourage them to attack settlements in Kentucky. Of course, with the major fighting taking place far to the east, the Continental Army couldn't spare troops to send west to fight off this threat, so Clark led the Kentucky militia in defending Kentucky settlements. By the end of 1777, Clark began to devise a plan to strike British strongholds in what was then known as the Illinois country. Clark again met with Patrick Henry and asked for his permission to lead a secret mission to capture Kaskaskia, Cahokia, and Vincennes, which is in present-day Indiana. Clark began to recruit a force to accomplish this mission, and by June of 1778, they were camped near present-day Louisville, Kentucky, on the Ohio River. In July 1778, Clark led a force of 175 men across the Ohio River at Fort Massac and crossed over into Illinois country, and they began their march towards Kaskaskia. On July 4th, Clark and the Americans captured Kaskaskia without firing a shot, and then shortly after captured Cahokia in the same way. By August, Clark and his force captured the fort of Vincennes, known as Fort Sackville, from the British. However, by December of 1778, the British retook the fort. Clark then organized another surprise attack on Fort Sackville, and on February 25, 1779, recaptured the fort from the British. The victories here made Clark a hero to many, such as George Washington, for securing the western territories for the Americans during the war. Clark spent the remainder of the war primarily based out of Louisville, Kentucky, and was promoted to a brigadier general in 1781. During this time, he spent much of his efforts fighting combined British and Native American forces. After the Revolution was over, settlers began to really pour into Kentucky. This again prompted violence between Native Americans living there and settlers moving in. Clark led raids against Native American villages in the Northwest Indian War. Clark has been criticized for his needless brutality against Native Americans during this time, and furthermore, he was accused of being drunk while on duty. Additionally, Clark had financed or paid for the majority of the equipment and resources needed during his campaigns in the war. He had borrowed a lot of money, and now creditors were wanting him to repay the debts. Clark had not kept good records of all of the expenses, so Virginia refused to pay Clark. Clark was given over 150,000 acres of land by the state of Virginia, but Clark did not have the money to develop the land into anything profitable for him. So by the 1790s, he had to give away much of his land to avoid it being seized by creditors. In 1803, he built a small cabin on what was left of the land he had just across the Ohio River from Louisville. There he lived until 1809, when he suffered a stroke and fell into an open fire, and his right leg was severely burned, resulting in it being amputated. He then moved in with one of his sisters near Louisville, and in 1818 he suffered another stroke and died shortly after on February 13th, 1818, at the age of 65. So with that, hopefully you learned something, and thanks for watching.